Boom, Social Studies teacher here at Niskayuna High School. Welcome to the third annual Evening in History. Our program tonight is a commemoration of World War II on the 70th anniversary of both VE and VJ Day. Technically that was 2015 and it's 2016 now, but we're planning it, so that's what we're going with. Through historical speech and song, our goal is to educate, to acknowledge, to inspire, to reflect, and most of all, to tell a story of an important time in the history of man and the 20th century. To that end, let me say from the outset that given that this war lasted 2,174 days, saw more than 30 countries take part, and claimed an average of 27,600 lives every day, it actually works out to about 1 every 3 seconds. Tonight we tell our story in a thematic way, understanding that our program is merely a small sample of the immensely larger picture. Many thanks to the students, faculty, and staff who you will hear and see this evening. I'd like to personally acknowledge the work of Mr. Eric Hughes, Mr. Brian O'Connor, Mr. Pete Warren, Mr. Steve Haneke, Ms. Maria Elmer, Ms. Heather Workman, Mr. Mike Peters, and Mr. Peter Melito. A special thanks from me to my co-creator, collaborator, and general partner in crime, the amazing, irreplaceable Ms. Christina Pizzino Catalano. The video that you saw when you were walking in was created by David Burmaster, who is seated here on the stage. The song you heard to start us off is Take the A Train. First recorded in 1941, it has become both a jazz and popular music standard written by Billy Strayhorn. It became the signature tune of the Duke Ellington Orchestra. Part 1, Rhetoric. Starting in the 1920s, political leaders in both the democracies and the dictatorships began to use the new technology of the radio, realizing that the power of the spoken word projected to their people. Two of the most famous orators of the World War II era are the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and the US President Franklin D. Roosevelt. In the words of William Rees-Mogg, recalling a childhood spent glued to the radio, Churchill's speeches, quote, persuaded the country as a whole that the Nazi regime was wholly evil, that there could be no security in surrender. In doing so, quote, they saved Britain, and through Britain, they saved the world. We present Churchill's Never Give In address delivered in 1941 to the students at his alma mater, Harrow, and also the iconic speech delivered by President Roosevelt to the Congress after the Japanese attacks across the Pacific in early December 1941. The presenters are David Burmaster and John Hess. They will be followed by a musical interlude, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, written by Don Ray and Hughie Prince. The song was a big hit for the Andrews Sisters in 1941 and brought back most famously by Bette Midler in 1972. You're going to notice tonight that so much of the music is iconic to us today, and so many performers over the years have picked these pieces out. So snap along, tap your toes, and enjoy the first part.
You cannot tell from appearances how things will go. Sometimes imagination makes things out far worse than they are. Yet without imagination, not much can be done. Those people who are imaginative see many more dangers than perhaps exist. Certainly many more than will happen. But then they must also pray to be given that extra courage to carry this far-reaching imagination. But for everyone, surely, what we have gone through in this period, I'm addressing myself to the school. Surely from this period of 10 months, this is the lesson. Never give in. Never give in. Never, never. Never in nothing, great or small, large or petty. Never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy. We stood all alone a year ago, and to many countries, it seemed that our account was closed. We were finished. All of this tradition of ours, our songs, our school history, this part of the history of this country were gone and finished and liquidated. Very different is the mood today. Britain, other nations thought, had drawn a sponge across her slate, but instead our country stood in the gap. There was no flinching, no thought of giving in. And by what seemed almost a miracle to those outside these islands, though we ourselves never doubted it. We now find ourselves in a position where I say that we can be sure that we have only to persevere to conquer.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a day which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by the naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or of armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that this attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage to American naval and military forces. I regret to tell you that many American lives have been lost. In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on the high seas between San Francisco and Honolulu. Yesterday, the Japanese government also launched an attack against Malaya. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island. And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. Japan has, therefore, undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense. But always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us. No matter how long it may take us to overcome the premeditated invasion, the American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. I believe that I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. Hostilities exist. There is no blinking at the fact our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God. I ask that Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Following these and ending part one of the program, our next musical interlude is Heart and Soul. Published in 1938, the music by Hoagie Carmichael and lyrics by Frank Loesser. It has been recorded by such artists as Glenn Miller, Jan and Dean Martin.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hope and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940 and 41. The United Nations has inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, or white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and could provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost our way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery has given us abundance, but has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is upon you now is but the passing of greed. The bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of man will pass, the dictators will die, and the power that they took from the people will return to the people. As long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourself to these brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourself to these unnatural men. Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You are the love. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You do not hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. Then, in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen up to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill those promises. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, do away with national barriers, do away with greed and hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us unite!
Heart and soul, I fell in love with you. Heart and soul, the way a fool would do madly, because you held me tight and stole a kiss in the night. Heart and soul, I beg to be adorned, lost control and tumbled overboard gladly. And the magic night we kissed, there in the moon mist. Oh, but your lips were thrilling, much too thrilling. Never before were mine so strangely willing. But now I see what one embrace can do. Look at me, it's got me loving you madly. The little kiss you stole, it held all my heart and soul. Now I see what one embrace can do. Look at me, it's got me loving you madly. The little kiss you stole, it held all my heart and soul. Held all my heart and soul.
The poetry in this first part speaks to us in many ways. Randall Jarrell, Poet Laureate of the United States, wrote about his experiences in the Army Air Corps and losses. The German theologian Martin Niemöller was a prominent Protestant pastor who emerged as an outspoken public foe of Adolf Hitler and spent the last 7 years of Nazi rule in concentration camps. Here we will present the famous First They Came for the Socialists. And That Damn Fence is by an unnamed writer from the U.S. war relocation camps set up for Japanese Americans in Manzanar, Arizona. These are presented by Caitlin Denny, Chesta Prasad, and Mariah Misbani. The musical interlude following is I'll Be Seeing You, a popular song written in 1938, originally appeared in a Broadway flop, but became a favorite of both U.S. and British troops and many recording artists through the years.
It was not dying. Everybody died. It was not dying. We had died before. In the routine crashes, in our fields, called up the papers, wrote home to our folks, and the rates rose, all because of us. We died on the wrong page of the almanac, scattered on mountains 50 miles away, diving on haystacks, fighting with a friend. We blazed up on the lines we never saw. We died like ants, or pets, foreigners. In our new planes, with our new crews, we bombed. The ranges by the desert or the shore, fired at tow targets, waited for our scores, and turned into replacements and woke up. One morning, over England, operational. It wasn't different, but if we died, it was not an accident, but a mistake. We read our mail and counted up our missions. In bombers named for girls, we burned the cities we had learned about in school, till our lives wore out, our bodies lay among. The people we had killed, never seen. When we lasted long enough, they gave us medals. When we died, they said, our casualties were low. They said, here are the maps. We burned the cities. It was not dying. No, not ever dying. But the night I died, I dreamed that I was dead. And the city said to me, why are you dying? We are satisfied if you are. But why did I die?
First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
They've sunk the posts deep into the ground. They've strung out wires all the way around, with machine gun nests just over there, and sentries and soldiers everywhere. We're trapped, like rats in a wired cage, to fret and fume with impotent rage. Yonder whispers the lure of the night, but that damn fence assails our sight. We seek the softness of the midnight air, but that damn fence in the floodlight glare awakens unrest in our nocturnal quest, and mockingly laughs with vicious jest. With nowhere to go and nothing to do, we feed terrible, lonesome, and blue. That damn fence is driving us crazy, destroying our youth and making us lazy. Imprisoned in here for a long, long time, we know we're punished, though we've committed no crime. Our thoughts are gloomy and enthusiasm damp, to be locked up in a concentration camp. Loyalty we know, and patriotism we feel, To sacrifice our utmost was our ideal, to fight for our country and die perhaps. But we're here because we happen to be Japs. We all love life and our country best. Our misfortune to be here in the West, to keep us penned behind that damn fence, is someone's notion of national defense.